Hi everyone, I'm Rod the Aussie IT Contractor, and today I'm discussing how to run a workshop for project stakeholders and subject matter experts. Workshops are a really useful tool for business analysts, project managers and product owners to facilitate gathering of information for their project. However, organising and running these events can be a real challenge. During my more than 20 years in projects, I've run numerous workshops. From that experience, I've put together my tips and processes for holding a successful workshop. When should a workshop be used? Workshops can be useful at all stages of a project lifecycle, but are particularly powerful at the project inception and where critical events happen like tightening deadlines or when major scope changes are being evaluated. When you have a diverse group of stakeholders and subject matter experts, or there is a need to gain a general consensus among different business areas within the organisation, gathering everyone together in a workshop is an effective method to help the project move forward. Workshops also allow various interests to air their viewpoints, lay out their case and ensure their concerns are heard, plus it gives the project stakeholders access to the main decision makers. If there are more and more meetings happening with different stakeholder groups, the emails are getting out of hand, or you are spending a lot of time communicating requirements, decisions and scope between your various stakeholders, then a workshop can be a very valuable project tool. Selecting the appropriate workshop participants. The invitees should be carefully selected and limited to one of the following three types. Firstly, the subject matter experts as representatives of their business areas. Their contribution is critical as they understand how their business area operates and they are the main source of project requirements. The SMEs need to feel project ownership as their input is critical to the ultimate project success, and they will be instrumental during the delivery phase in integrating the project changes into their business. Secondly, the decision makers, and in the project RACI, these are the people who are accountable. This should ideally be working group level decision makers. However, if you're expecting really big ticket items to be decided, this may need to be extended to the steering committee. The aim is to have people who can really make the final decisions in the room when the options and scope are being discussed. And finally, the immediate project team. While it can be useful to bring in a greater audience to observe the requirements being generated, such as the IT delivery team or software vendors or other project streams within your program of work, care must be taken to not let the workshop participation become too program heavy. The workshop focus is about gaining the business input needed to solidify your project scope, gather requirements and agree to timelines. Too many outside influences at this point can cloud the proceedings and distract the workshop from its desired goals and outcomes. If needed, these other groups can run their own dedicated workshops at the appropriate time. To the roles of people involved in the workshop. First off, we have the Master of Ceremonies. My preference is to have the project person whose questions are being answered by the workshop as the one who is directing the proceedings. This allows them to drive the pace, manage the workshop direction and maintain the participants' focus on the issues that need to be addressed. However, if a public speaking and leadership role is not something that the workshop initiator is comfortable with, bring in a project manager, a scrum master or a product owner to control the room. Next, we have the documenters. The person leading the discussion should not be distracted with the tasks of record keeping and note taking. Having someone like a business analyst in the supporting role is really valuable. It's important to be able to accurately document the discussions being conducted, the tasks being defined and the decisions made, and this is something that a BA is well skilled to do. The third role is what I like to call the informed assistant. The larger the number of attendees at your workshop, the more assistance will be required to help proceedings run smoothly. So these assistants should be familiar with the project and familiar with the topics being discussed, and ideally from within the project team itself. Their roles will be to run the project walls, the parking lot and to manage the RAID register, which are items that we'll cover a little bit later. That covers off the workshop team, so now all we need is the participants, and these are the decision makers and the subject matter experts, as they are the ones who are actually putting in the work into the workshop. Now to the agenda. In addition to including items that need to be discussed in the workshop, allow time for review and recaps. If you're covering a lot of ground, the participants will need the opportunity to look back at what has already been discussed. The order of priority is important too. Big ticket items, such as the critical decisions and the requirements, should come first. This drives later discussions and prevents backtracking later in the day. And when running the workshop, there's a real trade-off decision to be made, either to cut the subject discussions short when the time has been reached in order to complete the agenda, or to recognise the value of continuing on and over the allocated time and dropping other agenda items off to make up the extra time that has been taken. Just ensure that the participants are aware that continuing this discussion means that an item later on in the agenda might not be covered. My next workshop tip is to use marshalling techniques. Keeping a room full of experts on topic is a major challenge. The workshop participants may delve into other related topics, uncover exciting new issues they then try to immediately address, or head off into solution mode. In order to keep proceedings running smoothly and to meet workshop goals, it is necessary to redirect these diverging conversations back to the agenda items. However, just cutting off the conversation can be counterproductive, as it takes the ownership of the issues away from the SMEs and the decision makers. Documenting a synopsis of these wandering conversations allows the room to acknowledge further discussion is required, but frees them to return to the workshop topics at hand. The first technique is to use the RAID register, which is risks, actions, issues and decisions. The structure and formality of this register is often enough to give the participants confidence that their topic of interest isn't going to be forgotten. Inclusion of details on who raised the item, who owns it, and a summary of the conversation ensures that the room can safely move on with the next agenda item. The second is the use of the parking lot, which is used to record ideas, solution options, discussion items, future scope matters, and contentious issues. At its simplest, the parking lot can just be an area on a whiteboard or a flip chart where open items of conversation are recorded. It is less structured than a RAID register and is used where a participant has concerns or areas of inquiry that the project team can address outside of the workshop forum. The parking lot may be returned to if time allows and will be included in the post-workshop summary. The project team should create action items to address these issues if needed. It's important not to underestimate the importance of choosing an appropriate location. Now, budget issues and COVID aside, if you can get everyone into a single location, the conference will undoubtedly be more successful. Having everyone in the same room helps create focus and enhances participation. If the workshop is to be held on company premises, look for a conference room that is on a different floor, or better, a different building to that usually occupied by the attendees. This helps them focus on the workshop and reduces the temptation to just pop out for a minute to address a BAU issue. Look for larger conference rooms which have a bigger capacity than your invited audience, as there's nothing worse than cramming the maximum number of people into a room for the entire day. Also look for a room that has suitable technology with enough space to work in and display the work outputs that will be produced during the workshop, and it also has easy access to facilities like kitchens and toilets. If your organisation has dedicated conference facilities, corporate or function rooms, then these are ideal. And finally, consider using an off-site conference facility instead. Some of the higher-end business hotels rent out specialised rooms, and it doesn't hurt to add a sense of occasion to workshops that have impressive facilities. Another of my go-to techniques is the use of the project wall, and the reason that I'm mentioning it now instead of earlier when I was talking about raids and parking lots is that it needs a big room to facilitate it. You'll need a large whiteboard or blank walls to create a useful project wall. Regardless of whether the project is running as a waterfall, agile or a mix of the two, the project wall is a great way to display the high-level epics, scope items, decision points, dependencies and project blockers, along with information on who is going to deliver them, the approximate size of effort, prioritisation and the timing of each. To do this, have a timeline and swim lane set up all around the walls with easy access for participants, allowing them to see the bigger project picture as it's being developed and to assist them in visualising complex projects and task dependencies. Also show delivery dates or milestones to demark the project journey, as this helps in visualising resourcing needs for the project and the level of commitment needed from the business to support the SMEs involved in the project outcomes. As the workshop progresses, more epics may be added to the project wall as decisions are made and scope items are clarified. Building up this visual representation greatly assists in clarifying complex projects to your audience. It's important to make sure you hear the voice of all of your participants, and this can be difficult, particularly if there's a large workshop and you have some dominant personalities. A useful technique is to provide every participant with a stationery that allows them to record their own epics, scope and activities. Things like butcher's paper or flip charts, index cards and post-it notes are ideal for this. This enables participants to add their own inputs as they think of them, and the simple act of writing down an item, getting out of the seat and adding it to the appropriate raised space, parking lot or project timeline gives them a sense of involvement and ownership of the process. It also allows all participants to see what is being recorded as others add items to the walls, and it shows methodology and structure, giving confidence that the outputs of discussions are being recorded and that all points of view are being heard. For some participants, this method is preferable to trying to interject themselves into the robust or ongoing conversations. The items that they write on the road, project wall or parking lot can then be addressed by one of the assistants or the MC. And the workshop assistants can also collate, summarise and consolidate the cards, post-it notes and other items generated by the participants to produce a single cohesive output for the group. When you can't get the whole crew together into a single location and are therefore using online meeting tools like Skype or Teams, there is a need for additional housekeeping. Firstly, you'll need to add additional check-in time to the start of the meeting, time for people to get their coffee, get themselves organised and work out how to take themselves off of mute. Also have specific check-in points for all participants. If you have a group where there are a few dominant voices, make sure to stop periodically and specifically call out people to see if there are any information that they need to add or any questions that they would like to raise. Understand that it is more difficult to break into teleconference conversations and some people are not comfortable in doing this on their own. Also, have someone keep an eye on the chat windows for you so that they can interrupt appropriately and address any topics that are raised. Also, using an online collaborative tool like Trello or Stoodle can help all the participants to be actively involved. These tools allow the participants to see results of discussions being documented in front of them and ideally also enables them to directly make their own contributions. Static displays of presentation slides just won't hold people's attentions for hours at a time. Without the interaction and involvement, the conversations become one-sided from the presenter to the audience and the workshop devolves into a briefing session. You're not going to get the results that you're looking for without the participants being actively involved. I also strongly believe that it's mandatory to have regularly scheduled breaks. Concentration levels wane after an hour, and by 2 hours you're starting to lose even the most dedicated participants. For an all-day workshop there should be at least a mid-morning break, a lunch break and a mid-afternoon break. Give participants notice of when a break is coming up, as this helps stop the random wandering off for a coffee or stepping out for a phone call and will help them gain some focus for the last few minutes of that session. Also, just prior to the break is a good time to hold a recap of events, to run through the raid items and to track the agenda progress. I've also been known to advise participants of an upcoming break as a reward for pushing through the completion of a particularly heavy or onerous topic. To the topic of catering. If the workshop is for more than half a day or spans lunchtime, catering should be seriously considered and is virtually obligatory for a workshop that lasts a full day or more. A personal bugbear of mine is hearing that we don't have a catering budget. You know, the project workshop is pulling people out of their day jobs and the work is likely to be waiting for them to catch up on when they return. Workshops also have a higher intensity and require more prolonged concentration than everyday work, and this places a lot of demands on all of those involved. Providing catering is a simple and universal method of keeping everyone happy and is an easy way to reward them all for their efforts. And also providing food and drinks during breaks encourages everyone to close out the conversations and get the break started. Plus, it helps to make everyone feel refreshed and revitalised for the next session. Workshop preparation. Now, go ahead and groan, but I'm still going to say it. If you fail to prepare, you should prepare to fail. Block out enough time in your diary for the workshop preparation well before the event. As a guide, set aside the same amount of time as the length of the workshop. The bigger the workshop, the more preparation time you're going to require. First off, secure a venue. A good space is in high demand, so book early to ensure that an appropriate room is available for when you need it. Then inform the participants of the workshop. Make sure everyone is briefed on the project, the workshop goals and the tasks and issues are clear, and that the issues that you're going to be addressed have been set out. Have all the participants block out time in their diaries pending a confirmation of the workshop time, and also prepare and circulate briefing materials, project documentation, status reports and the agenda, which should detail topics to be covered the allowed times and expected outcomes. Additionally, sort out the stationery supplies, the basic Sharpies of magic markers, post-it notes, index cards, butcher's paper, etc. And don't forget to book the all-important catering and after-work event functions. Above all else, the key to a good workshop outcome is good preparation. Congratulations, the workshop has been a roaring success and the generously proportioned opera singer is preparing to deliver her encore. However, there are still a couple of tasks left to complete. Following the workshop, the outcomes of the discussions on scope and timelines need to be documented and published, along with the RAID register and the parking lot. The goals outlined in the agenda have hopefully been met and the project is now in good shape with the big questions answered. The success of the workshop should be reiterated to all of the participants as an acknowledgement of their time and contributions, as well as thanking them for the support for the project. The working materials generated during the workshop are a good resource, so gathering up the index cards, post-it notes, butcher's paper, etc. to become an archive in case you ever need to return to, hey, what was actually discussed in the workshop. Workshops are valuable tools for projects when used appropriately and run effectively. Having clear goals at the start and measuring successful outcomes at the end, plus utilising the information gathered, will not only help the current project but also demonstrate the competency and professionalism of the project team. So good luck with your next workshop and thank you for watching.